said you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Hi, I'm Gail Rubenstein, the founder and CEO of a company called Retail Resilient, social selling for the car industry. And we help auto dealers, auto agencies, and vendors in the auto industry sell more cars, service more cars, and make more money using our social selling strategy. That includes TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and anything else you can think of. So if you're looking to invest thousands and make millions, we're definitely the social selling company for you. Like I said, who said you can't teach an old dog new tricks?
If you run a service drive, you know these days first impressions matter. But when your advisors are tied up with inbound phone calls, they tend to neglect their other, more important duties. And did you know 75% of all service calls are frequently asked questions in routine requests? The average dealer misses up to 30% of inbound calls, adding up to a ton of missed service opportunity and increased customer churn. 68% of callers actually go elsewhere if they can't get through, which means you could be losing $60,000 to $70,000 every month in service revenue simply from missing calls. Introducing Brooke.
Hi there.
Your best service scheduling assistant. Brooke is the first intelligent digital voice assistant to answer, handle, and appoint all of your inbound service calls. Hiring Brooke means absolutely no call goes unanswered, boosting your customer satisfaction and reducing your overhead costs. And talking to Brooke is like talking to a friend.
Necessary, whether to a service advisor, roadside assistance, or a live agent. And I can do it without missing a beat.
You really do check all the boxes. Book with Brooke today.
Everybody wants to be part of a bigger story.
We're a small company, but we're going to change the whole industry.
Got to do the slides. So go ahead, Jeff.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We apologize for the little tech glitches. We're operating out of a hotel room in beautiful Las Vegas as we look out the window and we see all the sun, the mountains, the people going back to their lives. And coming here, we are here for ADA, or like I kept saying on all our things, the International Auto Dealer Hug Fest. And today we're talking about EVs, and for all these EV experts on, I really do apologize for the internal combustion engine vehicles, the old Corvette, the Mercedes G-Wagon, but we didn't have time to change it to something more cool. But today we have a variety of great EV experts on. But first we want to talk about a couple of things. Ian?
Yeah, first a couple books. Who's Driving Electric Cars? Understanding adoption of use and plug-in of electric cars, the rise and fall of Detroit's car companies, and the arrival of the electric car from Chris Johnson. So those are three books that I thought were good. And of course, if you're looking at movie versions, there's obviously Who Killed the Electric Car Part 1 and Part 2. If you haven't watched those already, pretty interesting. And now let's get into the disclaimer, Jeff.
Well, of course, as always, we do the disclaimer just to make sure that everybody understands the views and opinions of everybody on today's call are those of them and not necessarily of ours, even if we agree with them. And please check out our disclaimer on our website if you want any more in-depth details.
Cool, thanks. So go ahead.
So today's show on our Where Will EV Sales Be in 2022, we have a very eclectic group of people. I'll introduce them individually now, and actually, everybody that's on this call is new to the AutoHub show, with the exception of our beloved sponsor, Gail Rubenstein, of Retail Resilient. But first of all, introduce Katrina Gentile, who is an automotive journalist and EV specialist from Toronto, Ontario. Katrina, say hi. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Good morning. I'm an automotive journalist and one of the few women who covers cars in Canada. And I've been covering cars for the Globe and Mail newspaper for almost 2 decades. And I also report on the automotive beat for CTV News Channel, BNN Bloomberg, CHCH TV, and CP24. So I am excited to be here on your show today.
We're thrilled to have you. Thank you so much for taking the time. And we heard that you brushed off a national network just to be with us. And, we couldn't be happier. Thank you. Next, we have Jeremy Bernardin, who's the Business Development Manager at All EV Canada, which is part of the Steel Auto Group in that huge metropolis of Halifax, Nova Scotia. Jeremy, say hi. Tell us a bit about yourself and your business.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jeremy Bernardin. I've been in the electric vehicle world since 2011. I've worked for the government. I've worked for Mercedes-Benz. I've worked for a variety of different groups, and I'm one of the founders of All EV Canada, and we're currently the largest electric vehicle dealership in Canada.
Okay, so the question is how many Fisker Karmas do you have, and will you have one?
We don't have any right now of the original Fisker Karmas, but who knows, in the future we might.
Yeah, I'm actually on one of their groups, and you can hear everybody reaching out. It won't start. We don't know why. Next, we have from that beautiful place that I was there about 6 months ago, Paris, France, Paris. We have Pranav. I apologize, but Nagavekar. I got that right. Please say hi, introduce yourself, and you are a research engineer in solid-state batteries, and who knows, maybe you and Kevin, who will introduce in a minute, can develop something here. Please say hi.
Well, hello everybody. Basically, I've been working, I have an experience of about 6 years, and I've worked in various companies in Tata Motors from India, in Ford Motors, and a short time in Caterpillar. And I'm currently into University of Paris-Saclay, and I'm working on research on solid-state battery. We are trying to synthesize battery. And previously, I worked in battery design and electric vehicle packaging and safety, thermal management of batteries. So I'm glad to be here on Ian's show.
Thank you so much. Last but not least is a gentleman who's with a company that started in our hometown, Vancouver, BC, and it's near and dear to our heart. And I drive by their location there all the time, look at the Solos, and there's a little electric Porsche Speedster there. I'm going, darn, I don't want to go look at that. But Kevin Pavlov, who is the CEO of Electromechanica, actually joining us, I would hope, from Detroit, Michigan, the Auto City. Please say hi. And Kevin, thank you so much for being with us.
Hi, everybody. Thanks. I'm glad to be on. I've got a pretty good background, 30 years of cars. I've been a gasser, I've been a hybrider, and an EVer. Everything from playing with the EV1 to the mixed modes, to working at Karma, to working at on the EV programs for Daimler, VW, all kinds of them. So I'm really happy to be here. I think Electromechanica, we've positioned the company and the vehicle to serve a whole bunch of folks, and I'm really looking forward to interacting with the group.
So I have one question for you before we start. It's not on the call flow. Do you drive a Solo in Detroit?
Absolutely. So I drive it in Detroit. I drive it in Arizona. I drive it through the heat of Arizona. So on the July-August timeframe. But yes, quite a few of them. And I will tell you, I also drive the Roadster. So
my heart's breaking. I'm waiting for your contract with Domino's so they can show it with a pizza oven in the back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ian, if you can see this, because of course Ian's my tech guy, our tech guy. Your first question is:
with all the EV manufacturers launching into the market this year, how successful will they impact the EV market sales volume against the traditional ICE motorsports manufacturers? So let's start with Kevin on this one.
Sure. I think the auto industry has been investing and will invest about $500 billion in the next 5 years to transition to electric vehicles. That kind of money is going to go toward retrofits, building factories, training workers, writing software, upgrading dealerships, everything, right? There's more than a dozen new electric car and battery factories just in the United States. The work that's been going on and the money that's going into it really is the turning point. with all of the new introductions, I think there are many, many solutions for the customers. So I think the adoption is really here because the choices are there, multiple battery sizes and ranges are there. We're going to have to deal with some infrastructure, but I think starting this year through 2025 with all the government incentives and everything else, we'll really get the EV market rolling. A couple of false starts in the prior, probably wasn't the right time, a little premature, but I think now is the time that we're really going to see a real influx of this. I mean, there's last year, I think there were 10 million vehicles globally. It was about 9% of the global market that had it. So if you're going to ask a question probably later around, what do you think the ramp rate is? So we'll talk about that. I'll give my colleagues a good chance to answer, but Electromechanica and the Solo will probably be an influential part of that.
Fantastic. Jeremy, what do you think?
Yeah, I think, to your question on electric vehicle manufacturers that are entering the space, I mean, Kevin is definitely well seated to answer that one. And there's a lot of other companies, coming from China, Geely, NIO. They're not in the North American market yet, but they're still putting some international pressure. I'm quite excited about this influx of new manufacturers coming in, and Electromechanica included. It's just putting all sorts of pressures on the other OEMs to innovate and to step up their game with both production volume and with innovation. In terms of how much of a dent is it making in the sales volume, I think right now we're not seeing as much of a dent, right? Like Rivian's not really delivering many units at this very point. I mean, it's a very huge hurdle to overcome to get into that space. But I think we're going to start seeing that in the next few years, where it will change that percentage of market share from the traditional OEMs and from Tesla as well. But I'm excited for all of it.
And what's your opinion? I mean, obviously, you guys sell ICE cars and electric cars new versus used. What's your thought on the used side of the market? In terms of adoption, do you find that there's just more people buying used EVs just because price point savings, or what's your thought there?
Yeah, I mean, this is diverging a little bit into this, but essentially, well, all EV, first of all, we're in 4 provinces in Eastern Canada, and all we do is pre-owned. The only way to have multiple brands under one roof is to have it pre-owned. On the new side, it doesn't work that way. So we do have a pretty good picture of how things are laid out. The used side right now is particularly hot simply because of supply and demand. On the new side, if you try to go and buy, whatever you want, name anything out there, it's essentially sold out at the very moment, right? The demand is extremely high. And on the used side, it's the only way to get a car immediately, right? So people are looking at that, sometimes for cost savings, but also for the immediacy of fulfilling their need.
Fantastic. Thanks for that. Petrina. Is it Petrina? Yeah, Petrina. My mistake. Sorry.
Yeah, I see the market continuing to grow gradually for EVs. I mean, in Canada, we're going to see 52 new ones coming out this year. It's almost doubling what we have. And I think gas prices now, these unprecedented rates of gas prices, is what's going to put people over the edge. And KPMG in Canada just did a survey they released this morning for the Globe and Mail. It hasn't even come out yet in print, but they say that 62% of Canadians are really seriously considering making that switch to electric, directly linked to the gas price hikes, because we've seen these unprecedented levels. So I think that is going to be a trigger for them to make that final push into electric vehicles.
A question, seeing as how you brought that up, in jurisdictions where they have a lot of fossil fueled generators for electricity, are we going to see a rise in electric rates because of that?
Well, there's a lot of issues here, okay, because it's not just about the price of oil going up. We're hearing that, it could reach $150 a barrel. Gas is going to be 2 liters, in a couple of weeks. But it's not just that. You have to also look at the fact that nickel prices are going up.
We're already $2.10 a liter, just so you know.
Oh, wow.
In
Canada, Ontario.
But hold on a minute. Pranav is laughing at us because it's probably about 225 euros a liter there, right?
Yeah, but I was more interested in the part which Petrina was about to say about the nickel prices.
Yeah,
At
well,
the
nickel
same time,
prices are up. Yeah, cobalt. This is all
So-
important stuff for EVs.
So the price of nickel has gone up by, I believe, 5 times, from 20,000 to 100,000, which is ridiculous, and it will have a small dent on the prices of EVs.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, we
but
got Kevin.
Prabhanav didn't answer the other question though.
Yeah, how could you forget Pranav?
Yeah. How could I forget?
That's
So
my job to forget people.
Okay, so Prabhanav, what did you think about the main question there?
Yeah, about the new electric vehicle market manufacturers coming in, or the second-hand. Okay, so I would agree with Jeremy that it's really interesting that we would be seeing a lot of new electric vehicles coming in, but they might not have a direct impact on sales initially. A good example, Jeremy suggested was of Rivians, but even other electric vehicles you see which are coming up, they're struggling with the sales. But it will definitely have an impact. The more pressing concern is the traditional manufacturers. They are now starting to pick up on electric vehicles, and since they have started ramping up the production, people will definitely lean towards the traditional ones because they have more experience behind them for building vehicles in general. So in coming 2 to 3 years, if they start ramping up their production a lot, and that's basically going to be a little bit of a hurdle for the new electric vehicle manufacturers to surpass. And about the second question about the dealers selling the second-hand electric vehicles, I would say people are a little bit reluctant. They have set it in their mind that electric vehicle has something different from few ICEs, because in ICE the fuel is always new, but in electric vehicles the battery, the fuel, the main thing that runs the vehicle, it remains the same. So if somebody is going to buy a second-hand electric vehicle, that person is going to always think that what is the current state of the battery of this vehicle? Because even a common person who doesn't understand much about vehicles, they still use a smartphone, and they know that the battery starts degrading over the period of time. So it's there in their back of their mind that they don't know how much range this vehicle will give when it's bought secondhand. So if the dealers are maybe changing the battery packs and then reselling it, it will definitely be very effective. But if not, it's going to be very difficult to sell electric vehicles in the secondhand market, is what I think.
Thanks for that.
Jeff, if I could throw a quick one in,
Please.
you have to keep remembering the magnitude of things. There's over 100 million vehicles globally per year sold. Most of the vehicles today are lasting much, much longer than they did in the past. 16 years is an average lifespan on vehicles. So to replace one type of technology into the market into another takes a real period of time from the mass introduction. Analog brakes took 10 years to become a standardized piece amongst our platforms. So I know while everybody thinks it's a 1 or 2 year big flip, for 100 million vehicles, the production is ridiculously high. And it's a matter of the adoption rate and people saying, I've got to step out of something that I already know into something that I might not know. So I have a feeling we're going to see this nice curve as we start to enter into this, because there's just a lot of volume. And really the pinnacle piece is, how many choices do people have? You can pick large battery packs, small battery packs. You can pick vehicles that meet your needs because you're urban driving, or you want to go a lot farther out into the suburbia. So I just everyone realizing the magnitude of this changeover and the amount of time it might take. So getting everyone's expectations, flipping over the world, and it's going to take a little while.
Well, I tell you this, I predict 20 years from now, and you'll think about of me then, you will see in the middle of Africa driving through the Sahara Desert, a 20-year-old F-150 Lightning with a 35-foot by 20-foot solar panel on top of it so they can get some charging.
There you go.
Okay, so tell me something. Pre-pandemic, the predictions were, and this is what you alluded to there, Kevin, with a prediction that EVs were going to be about 20% of the market by 2030. And so now, what's your prediction of market share this year? And again, it's market share, so volumes, of course, we can't. But, and then what about 2025? And I'm going to go to Jeremy on that. And this is new vehicles, even though you're a used guy.
I'm going to defer to somebody else to tackle that. I was just writing a couple notes, and I'll just sideline for a second. Pranav's point on, used electric vehicles, not being, one of the options. I just wanted to point that there are innovations that are happening in the space. And one of the things that we've done is we have a battery health report on all of our used vehicles. So it is a challenge when you're buying a used vehicle. You don't know the state of health of that battery. Does it have the original range? Does it have a lot less? How's it going to behave? That's a hugely important point for a consumer who's looking to buy a used vehicle. Now, when we have a battery health report and we're like, hey, your battery's at 94% health or 96% health, gives them confidence in purchasing secondhand. But even when the battery health is, let's say, whatever, 89%, which is quite rare. I've only seen that once on one of our vehicles. Even if it's an older car that has a more reduced range, we got to think there's a lot of families with two vehicles, and one's used for commuting. And in my case, I drive like 15 kilometers a day. I don't need a 500 kilometer range on my vehicle, especially if it's not my primary one. And another, quick note for Kevin, saying that, one of the big pivotal points will be the amount of choices that consumers have. 100% agreed. It's critical. And I think the other barrier that we've been facing and we will continue to face into the future is the education point. How aware are people how aware are people for what's available, what makes sense financially? There's a bigger sticker price up front, but then there's a lot of savings when you run the car. So you got to just do the math over, 5 years, 10 years to realize, long term, in most cases, it's advantageous to go electric. So that's a massive barrier that's going to affect uptake. But, when we're looking at predictions for 2025 or 2030 or what percentage, there's a lot more at play than just pure, models that are available or whatnot. I think government intervention has an enormous amount of influence, right? Incentives, but also mandates for requiring a certain percentage of electric vehicles to be sold. I think that has a bigger impact than many realize.
That's a very good point. And Pranav, I'm going to ask you this, but very interesting. And I know you're not, on the sales side of things, but Europe has a far greater selection of EV cars. I saw cars there that, first of all, you have the little commuter, a little bit better than a golf cart, but you also have brands like MG and everybody. Renault's got electric cars, Peugeot's got electric cars, which of course aren't sold in Canada and the US. But what do you think is going to happen? What kind of market share do you think we're looking at now, 2025, and what the heck, 2030?
Yeah, so I was looking at the sales of 2021, and already we are almost 10% of the overall sales in terms of vehicles. I would say this year it looks like it might even ramp up a little bit more, and we are looking like already this year we might cross 15% of the total vehicle sales. 2025, I was looking for the global targets, like which each state, and it seems like European unions have the targets of about 25 to 30% by 2025, and somewhere around 60 to 70% by 2030. The Asian markets are targeting at least 20% by 2025 and about 40% by 2030. And US targets somewhere around 25% by 2025 and up to 50% electric vehicles by 2030. So I believe that looking at the present stats, it looks like an achievable target.
Now, one thing I do have to say, Norway, I read somewhere that Norway's already at 60%, but that's a whole different thing because they export all their oil. Ian.
Yeah, we have a question from Gail. What's the infrastructure like in regards to charging stations in the 4 provinces he is in? And that's obviously for our Steel, a fellow from Steel Auto. Also, what's the longest battery life vehicle in terms of distance driven that he stocks in inventory?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had two questions.
Now you can ask him. You're welcome
Yeah,
back.
Okay, so Jeremy, you're in 4 provinces, you said?
Yep. The 4 Atlantic provinces: New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and Newfoundland.
Okay, so my first question is just in regards to charging stations, what does the infrastructure look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. And if folks want to check out plugshare.com, just to have a quick glance of what the stations are, where they are. Right now, the infrastructure in Eastern Canada is actually quite good. You can get around everywhere. If you look at the rest of the country, we probably have, aside from maybe one province in the prairies, we actually don't have that many charging stations compared to Quebec and Ontario, but we're able to get around the entire province. And at the same time, we don't have as many vehicles, so it doesn't create as much of an issue. But, at the end of the day, 95% of your charging is done at home. Unless you're going to drive 400 kilometers that very day, then why would you charge elsewhere ever at any point, right? It's like owning a gas station in your backyard where you get gas at wholesale. Why would you go fill up anywhere else unless you're so far you're not going to make it back home? So it's shifting the thinking a little bit, and you charge every single night instead of just filling it up, at a gas station every 10 days or so. But I drive between provinces all the time. I drive, in our province from one end to the other. There's a great charging network that's consistently expanding. And your question was the longest range vehicle.
Yeah, so that leads into my next question, because I have a hybrid and I can only drive 27 miles on battery. So my question was, in terms of what you stock in inventory, this may sound like a dumb question, but I don't know the answer, is what do you choose to stock, and is your decision driven based on battery, what is the longest distance driven on a battery before you charge it? I don't even know.
So again, it's really not that important, even though people fixate on it. But to answer your question, 650 kilometers is the longest range we have for an electric vehicle. And people say, I'm not going to go electric until the car can do 1,000 kilometers per charge. But again, there's infrastructure you charge every single day. And the average Canadian drives 68 kilometers a day. 90% of Canadians drive less than 65 kilometers a day. So, whether your battery has a 400 kilometer range or a 650 kilometer range, will you see that on a day-to-day level? No. Will you notice a difference on really long trips when you go, from one city to the other that's quite far on a summer road trip? Sure, a little bit, in the fact that you'll stop at one more charging station instead of, whatever the other number. But it is a question we hear all the time, and it's very prevalent in people's minds where I only fuel once every 2 weeks. I need an electric car to be able to go 1,000 kilometers. And in reality, it's like your cell phone. You charge it every single night.
Right.
But there are a lot of issues here. I drive a lot. I'm not one of these people that live in the city and just drive 10 kilometers. I am doing drives that are maybe sometimes, 300 kilometers in a day. And when I drive an electric vehicle, it can be very stressful on me because, you can say it's 400 kilometers of range, but once I turn on the heat, once I'm driving highway speeds, it's in the middle of the winter, that battery depletes pretty quickly. And I've been in a situation when I've run out of range, and it is a horrible feeling. It's an uncomfortable ride because you're driving and you don't have the heat on. You're trying to conserve as much as you can. It's frustrating. You stop at an infrastructure to get the charging, and there might be 4 there, and all of them are not working. And that has actually happened to me.
Really?
So it's yes, absolutely.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot of work to be done. And there's a lot of shift in the mentality of thinking. We're coming into the summer, we're coming into road trips. If you are planning on doing an electric vehicle, you have to really think about how your drive becomes different. You have to plan out the route, you have to plan out the time to charge, because we know that there's more charging time, it's not filling up easily, like you would at a gas station. So there are a lot of pros and cons that you have to think about as well. But those numbers, for me, I need 500 kilometers to feel that I don't have that range anxiety, but I often do have it. And I've driven a lot of electric electric vehicles. I just came out of the Volvo XC40 Recharge, and that was nice to have when I saw that fluctuating in the gas prices last week. I really appreciated that, but it can be very, very stressful for sure.
Recharge a lot.
Hey,
Yeah.
Katrina kind of read my mind, which as Jeff and Ian will tell you is a strange thing to read. I understand your attitude. Well, people shouldn't maybe be so obsessed about it, but my suspicion is you've never run out of gas with a car, which is one of the all-time miserable experiences. It's ugly, it's scary. I don't know if I travel as much as Katrina, but I tend to occasionally be a road warrior, and I'm always in a damn hurry to get somewhere, and I'm always thinking, to hell with it, I don't need to stop at that gas station. There's another one. And man, when that thing gets low and you're stuck in traffic, so I don't think that's a fear you're going to alleviate, because it's real. And let's just be frank, the reliability and the totality of what you can do with electric and gas, we're not even in the same planet. That's why, and I'm probably the worst tech guy on this program, but that's why I'm a lot more skeptical of most people about how quickly electric vehicles are going to convert.
Yeah,
That's actually a real situation. In last winter in Spain, I believe, in Madrid, there was a traffic jam, and the question was raised where like people were stuck for 15 hours or something, and the electric vehicles there were having the real challenge of staying up. So yeah, it's a very real situation.
There's a lot different. So Gail, 1,000 miles. There's a vehicle you can buy. It'll do 1,000 miles of range.
Okay, yeah, that was my question. Was
It's called a bicycle.
This took a whole different turn on everyone's experiences with their EVs.
But let's talk about so I mentioned this bigger view. Let's look at that for 1 second. Technology is not where it's stationary today. There are about 50,000 charging stations in the US. Money is being poured in to put about 500,000 charging stations in the US. But these are grid dependent charging stations. They have to tie into electrical wires. There's a whole market blooming right now that are portable charging stations. It's a trailer with a bunch of batteries on it. They drive up, they park them along the road. You go in, there might be 7 charging stations on this portable unit. It sends a telemetry message back, and they just go change out the trailer. And they can buy them and put them down any stretch of road in any remote condition. There are 15 different companies that I know right now that are working on urban charging points because it's too expensive to dig up the ground and put the cables in. So what's happening is there's this big additional emergence. Now, I mentioned, like our Solo has got a very small battery in it that gives you 100 miles of range, but we built it around something called snack charging. And when the inductive chargers are on the bottom of your vehicle, you basically pull into a parking spot. And if you have a real small battery, it charges really fast because there's not a lot of it, right? Yeah. So you can get these, what's called a snack charge during the day. You can get 200 miles of range out of a 100-mile range vehicle. And
hey, Kevin, you indicated that they were trying to put 500,000 charging stations in. Were you talking about the United States?
I was referring to the United States.
Okay, well, keep in mind with our current administration, that'll result in 4 charging stations and 19 million new diplomats. Just so you're aware.
I want to remind everybody about the AutoHub show disclaimer.
Yeah. But there's a ratio that you guys should watch out for. And right now there's about, I think, 17.5 vehicles per charging station across the globe. So if you take the total charging, you take the total vehicles, right? So the sweet spot is around 9. Because if you look at gasoline to cars, right? So if we get down to the point, and every single year it'll be the same thing, there'll be more being introduced. The hot spots will be treated first. The outlying areas will be treated second. Maybe that's the mobile solutions. But the whole point of range anxiety is being addressed. There is a lot of money going into it. And with different choices in the cars, if you do drive 300 kilometers and you need something a little more, you buy a vehicle with a little more battery in it. If you're more of the urban person or you have multiple vehicles, there's a lot of options. So I just don't want you to think technology is stagnant. Having gas stations that are mobile, those are a lot harder to do.
Right.
You don't take trailers of gasoline and go park them along the side of the road. You can have an electric mobile piece, and that's what gives us our flexibility. And when you were talking about provide the chemical or side of this, we can have mobile batteries. They can be safe. They can be locked down. And so I think there's going to be the entrepreneurs of our world will take advantage of this.
I was just thinking about it. So I'm an entrepreneur and I was like, I should totally get a charging station going. That was literally my first thought.
Your home will charge you about 10 cents a kilowatt hour. Can't beat the price, right? On the road when you need it, it might be $1 or $1.50 US for a charging station, on a per kilowatt hour basis. But it will continue to roll in. And as the entrepreneurs see the need, they're going to put more and more different technologies to cure range anxiety, because it's one of the biggest things we need to address. So different vehicles, more charging infrastructure, more entrepreneurial pieces to take care of range anxiety. It is not sitting still.
And nature does abhor a vacuum. They always find a way to fill what needs to be filled.
That's right.
Katrina, in the meantime, bring some liquor with you. So when you run out of electricity, you've got something to drink. It'll kill the anxiety. I know, Ian and Jeff, you're not responsible for my statement. We got that.
Here's a cool.
And Kevin also mentioned the technology improvement. It's also getting improved in battery itself. So not just on the chargers, but we're also trying to get more range out of the same size of the batteries, getting it more energy dense, trying to see if we can incorporate new technologies. And I think in this decade, it will be really interesting how the future batteries turn out. So that will also add up to the range anxiety issue.
There's a couple of technologies.
I want to interject here for a moment, folks. Because we do want to touch a couple other things, but I strongly recommend all of you to connect and look up a gentleman named Don Brady, a fellow I talked to at NADA, and he was involved in the what they call the Drive Across America. And they took electric vehicles from New York City, I believe, to LA, and they could only stop at public charging stations. And when you talk about range anxiety, he told me about times that they were sweating bullets because they didn't know where they could go. But we should move on with questions. And Ian.
So in terms of infrastructure, obviously there's a number of companies. I know one is owned by Mercedes-Benz. There's obviously gas stations getting into this business, seeing that. Is there other ways that, in terms of technology, obviously in the Canadian market, you have weather that impacts it. Is there other ways in terms of technology that can help in this area? And why don't we start with our battery person we're just talking to? So is Prabhnav, is correct?
Yeah, Pranav.
Yeah. So maybe you could talk us a little about technology and batteries, because I know you're in the solid state side of it, right?
Yes. I also work mostly on designing the regular conventional batteries. I'm currently working on designing solid state batteries. And the energy density, the safety level, the charging times on these batteries, at least on paper, it's like very impressive. So if you're talking about numbers, I think everybody here must have at least attended QuantumScape's presentation, or they might be aware of what QuantumScape is claiming. And the other solid-state batteries are claiming on similar levels. So there we are trying to double the energy density. So if currently your battery pack is going 300 kilometers, the same size of battery pack is expected to go at least 500 to 600 kilometers. If the battery pack that you have is charging in 1 hour at a fast charging, we are expecting it to charge in 30 minutes or even lesser, 15 minutes in near future. And the safety level on these batteries, like this is one of the huge concerns with the conventional batteries, where there are cases of battery packs getting into thermal runaway and catching fire. And the good thing about these solid-state batteries, as claimed as of now, is like they are expected to not catch fire in that much way, in a similar way. And they're not expected to have such thermal hazards. So in terms of safety, range, charging times, it looks like really good on paper. So I'm not trying to endorse the particular battery pack. I'm just saying that there are people working on upcoming technologies. They're trying to improve the energy densities on the batteries. They're trying to improve the charging times on the batteries. So these are the two very key issues that hold back people, general public, a lot of times. Like they always think about how much my vehicle will go. And even if an average person is only driving 68 kilometers per day, still a person always think that what if one day I want to go for some travel plan? What if one day I want to go out 500 kilometers away? And then he or she thinks that we have to stop somewhere in between. Is there any charger available, or something? Some issues like Katrina pointed out. And yeah, if at all we are able to address this issue, like improving the charging time and energy density, this is something that puts the nail on this particular issue.
Fantastic. Jeremy, what do you think?
Jeremy appears to have muted himself.
Yeah, no, I
Coming
did.
back.
The question was, it was how technology is effective is advancing infrastructure. Was that the question?
Yeah, like, I mean, obviously when you had your first electric vehicles, and there was a gentleman on the early video that we started the show with, who happened to be, I think, somewhere in the Caribbean using an e-Golf, which I think had about 100-kilometer range, if memory serves me. Obviously, as we get to vehicles with more range and we see technology managing batteries better, what do you think? Is that going to help on the, range anxiety front?
So first of all, Katrina had some good points, and not everyone's comfortable with it yet, and some do require a much bigger range, and I think that's the case for you, Katrina, right? Like, I think most Canadians commute to work and back, and there's still a percentage, or most people in North America, and there's still a percentage that are sales, and they're going all over the place, and they have an unpredictable kind of schedule, and having fast charging station is critical for that slice of the market, and the speed of the chargers, and to your point, Katrina, the reliability of the chargers is critical, right? They need to be functioning, and I think there's some early days in this, right? There's going to be some developments. I think Tesla's done a really good job with their charging infrastructure, both in terms of speed, user experience, the billing, how it's billed, all of that is a really great experience. And also at the amount of stalls and their reliability. And I think there's a lot to learn for the other manufacturers and makers of those charging stations. Now, that being said, there's kind of two slices in this space, right? There's some smaller range vehicles like the e-Golf that if you're commuting every single day to work and back, and it's your second vehicle in the household, that's likely a larger percentage of new adopters that are going to be buying electric vehicles that are also, at a lower cost. Now we're seeing some of the longer range vehicles, the ID4, we're seeing a lot of Tesla products that are in the 500-kilometer range that are also accessible. To add to that, the Ioniq 5 from Hyundai, Kia EV6, that can charge a lot faster, that can go a lot further. But at the end of the day, I think we're going to see faster charging. We're going to see more charging stations per location. But I love hearing Kevin's thoughts on the innovation side of charging, which I hadn't heard of, except for at racetracks. I've heard of Porsche bringing these big trailers with tons of batteries where, the Porsche Taycan can go and charge up while at the racetrack. So I think we'll continue seeing some innovations on that. I don't think we'll see inductive charging underneath highways for quite some time. That's one that I'm a little bit skeptical of, where there's been a few articles on it. But I'd love to hear Pranav and anybody else's thoughts on the feasibility of seeing induction charging under a highway corridor.
HOV lanes.
Yeah, HOV lanes. Kevin, did you have any thoughts?
Absolutely. So a couple things to consider. Number one, all the compromises are the same in gasoline vehicles as they are in electric vehicles. Let me tell you what that means. You had gasoline vehicles that ran diesel engines. You had gasoline vehicles that ran regular gas. You had different fuels that you could put in them. Well, how did we choose between those? Because today we have a car you can buy with a lithium iron phosphate battery, which has tremendous amounts of energy and a really long cycle life. That means you can charge it and recharge it more than twice as much as like an NMC battery. I'm sorry about the technical mumbo jumbo, but each one of the chemistries of battery have different features. So when you go to choose a car, some of those things come into play. The second thing is you could always get more range. You just put more battery in. If you're willing to pay for more battery, and that's exactly like in the gasoline car stuff. You want to go fast, you pay for speed, and literally speed costs in fuel economy. Well, it's the same thing in batteries. You want 1,000 horsepower truck, they'll put 1,000 horsepower of electric motor in it, but the battery gets chewed up pretty fast. The minute you drop the throttle, you do it. So all the same choices on the gasoline front are in the electric front. And it's not trying to confuse the folks. It's trying to make the right set of options available. So if you want a lot of energy, but you don't need to go really fast, or you don't need a burnout like in the pictures you were showing, right? You can get a different chemistry, which gives you this real longevity and provide, correct me if I'm wrong here, a solid state battery gives you the fact that you have other features that gives you, so there's 4 or 5 different flavors of batteries that are going into cars that suit a purpose. And it's kind of like the Solo, right? The Solo is a purpose-built vehicle, and batteries in whole on the general EV market, there will be purposes for those types. So the technology is already there. It's just the education, as was mentioned earlier, that people will learn more and more about their choices, and they have the freedom to pick up a car or a battery type that fits their needs. So those are my thoughts on that one, and hopefully,
Kevin, you and Pravna and Jeremy are obviously brilliant. So here is my low-tech rebuttal. Katrina and Gail, I am putting batteries in my flashlight, so when we have the inevitable weather-related solar and wind failure, I will be able to see in the dark. And I will look for a charging station for Katrina, who will probably be stuck in front of Jeremy's house cursing him out.
Hey, there's a phone app for that. Realize there's a phone app that will tell you where all the charging stations are, even the mobile ones. So,
but they won't tell you.
No. That's for your phone because you're a tech expert. My iPhone has a rotary dial on it. Okay, we need to dial this down a little bit for me.
Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready to rumble? In this corner, we have Larry Feldman. Hey, I was just wanted to say, Kevin, if you can give us a video of a Solo doing a burnout, we will use it instead of that Corvette.
Okay, yes. I'll get you a video.
Hey guys, excuse me. It was a pleasure. I have to go. Jeff and Ian just pay me to come in and destabilize their programs. I think I've accomplished that. It was a pleasure seeing you all. And Gail, I have reached out to you several times. I know I've been a little subtle, but call my butt, will you? I think we can do some stuff together.
Where are you reaching out to me?
I'm reaching out to you on LinkedIn. I think you have me blocked. I'm Larry Feldman. I happen to be even though I'm a little shy, I happen to be the world's greatest trainer and recruiter. I think we could tie in and do some miraculous things. And maybe we could get Pravna drunk and explain how these batteries really work. I think he's got a big plug under his desk. Everybody stay healthy. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Larry.
Bye.
Great meeting you. Bye-bye.
Yes.
Go ahead. So Jeremy.
Yeah, so coming back to the Kevin's point.
Katrina's been left out here.
Sorry.
Okay, my 2 cents on the technology front. Is that what you want? I think it's changing quite a bit, which is good. We're going in the right direction, but we still haven't addressed one big issue right now. Right now, the waiting list to get into an EV is anywhere from 4 to 12 months, depending on the vehicles. And we've seen so many manufacturers, pushing off their start dates. The Tesla Cybertruck. I remember being at the launch. I think I was the only journalist in that room in North America when Elon Musk said, here's the Cybertruck. Oh, it's going to come out by 2021. Well, that came and went. Now it's like 2023. So, all these manufacturers are dealing with semiconductor chip shortages. There is a real problem here with delivering these vehicles. And I think a lot of manufacturers weren't anticipating the demand, there. So they're a little bit behind too. So that's another issue that needs to be dealt with as well. And it's, of course, not just EVs, but internal combustion engine vehicles as well.
Yeah, I think they're putting capacity online in the next 2 or 3 years. This backlog, I think, is gonna end. And if you look at it, the market share that the OEMs are trying to protect I mean, if you look at the pickup truck market, there is going to be a number of available vehicles in that space because look at who the leaders were. They're going to want to protect that share. They're going to want to make sure you have those options that I was mentioning earlier available to you. So it's merely a changeover in their capacity, and it's kind of difficult to do that. But I have a feeling in the next 2 or 3 years you'll have an abundance of choices and available vehicles.
Yeah, I agree with that, but it is going to be a few years away.
Yeah.
We are getting to the end of the show, so I know Pravnev wanted to say something there. So go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that on the technology front, Kevin pointed out that if we wanted to get bigger battery or more range, just buy a vehicle which costs more, and that's something that people don't want. They want the vehicle to go 500 kilometers, but they want to be it as cheap as the regular ICE vehicle, and that's like a real challenge. Like this puts a lot of pressure on the research teams who are trying to reduce the cost of manufacturing of batteries at the same time to ensure that the overall system is efficient. It's more safe, but at the same time it's just as cheap. So people want everything. They want a very good vehicle, but at the same time they want it to be very cheap. And that obviously makes sense for any consumer. So that's basically a consumer need.
Can I ask you a quick question, Pranav? Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
With the price of lithium and cobalt, nickel all going up, do you see, the next generation of batteries costing more and pushing the price of EVs up?
Actually, for this, that's a good question. I had attended the Bloomberg NES seminar, and I believe everybody might know about this person, but the presentation had accounted for the hike in the prices of raw materials, and at the same time, even with the hiked prices, it is estimated that the battery prices will continue to drop down, but the curve of the price will be it will drop down very slowly. So expect the batteries to be affordable by 2026 at latest. That's what the presentation said, that all the battery prices will be around less than $100 per kilowatt hour at worst by 2026, accounting for the hikes in the prices. But they did not account for the nickel price to be 5 times higher. So that's something that was unprecedented. But otherwise, it is still there that the battery price will continue to drop down, because we are not just improving on one particular aspect of raw materials. The research is going on to improve the overall manufacturing process, how each step can be reduced. So if you look at how one single cell is made up and how the cost accounts for it, some cost is for the anode, cathode, some is for the separator materials, or some cost goes into the manufacturing and the processes that go overall. And if we are cutting the cost at each and every step, somehow we are still going to get a reduced battery prices.
Thanks for that. Any final thoughts, Jeff, or from anyone on the panel?
Well, I think I'm going to say this. I think we need to get Red Bull involved in charging infrastructure and development, because if they're involved in it, I think it'll just grow like that. But thank you all for joining us. Please, anybody have any final comments, input?
I say that you said this beautifully. Vehicles are about how they make you feel. If you buy a vehicle that keeps you anxious, it's a little more difficult, but you have to give new things a try. And if it fits, get in it, enjoy it, and you will see the change. Again, by 2025, I was predicting the 12 to 15% globally, but get in and ride in a vehicle. See how it makes you feel. It is a different experience. And I think the more folks that get into electric vehicle, the more folks that say, hey, this is what I need or what I don't need, the easier the signal will go to the manufacturers to start to make the types of vehicles that are desired. Right now, there's a lot of vehicles that are going to be optioned. Some may be more desirable than others, but until you get in and try to drive one, at least experience it. That's my recommendation.
I can't wait. I'm driving the GMC Hummer this weekend in Arizona, and then the Toyota BZ4X in California the week after.
Well,
So that
stop
should
by
be
my
fun.
plant in Arizona. Drive a solo. See what that's about. Drive solo.
I may.
There you go.
I think you should arrange it for her, Kevin.
I will. I will. We're down in Mesa. Just get close.
Jeremy, any thoughts? You're muted.
Thanks. It's a tremendously exciting space. You know, I think we're going to keep seeing an enormous amount of innovation. I think we're seeing some big transformation in society with our electric vehicle infrastructure, but also smart cities, vehicle to grid, vehicle to home. We're seeing all sorts of innovations in that space. And the world as we know it in 15 years will not be the one it is now. So I think it's an exciting space to keep our eyes on. And I can't agree more with Kevin. You know, getting behind the wheel is the most important factor. I can spew all sorts of information on this or that, but at the end of the day, you got to get behind the wheel and floor it and get sucked into your seat and see the smile on your face. It's really worth trying.
Thanks very much. Jeff, final thoughts?
Well, actually, I think that's a good idea. I think we should do that thing, us old guys. We remember when people used to have a Super B Dodge Coronets, etc., and they put $100 bill on the dash and they put their foot to the floor and see if you can grab it. Do that on a Plaid. But everybody, I am so thrilled. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us. I know we've been trying to set it up for a long time. Pranav, I know it's late at date. Well, it's not that late in your neck of the woods. Jeremy, thank you so much. And of course, Patrina, we had a great conversation going there beforehand. I appreciate everybody being there. Thank you for everything. And Gail, of course, thank you for your support.
Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. See you in the
Thanks,
marketplace.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Great discussion with everybody.
Yes.
Yeah.